Most people overcomplicate real estate, but guess what? There are certain fundamentals that you should always follow. I've cracked the code. You're about to watch a video of me speaking to the War Room, which is a military investor group. And I did a Real Estate 101 presentation, and it is all about the fundamentals. And guess what? Experts never not do the fundamentals. And so at the end of that, I'm going to be giving my $1 million advice. By the way, my name's Hugh. If this is your first time here, and I scaled from 0 to a millionaire in 15 months and 0 to 287 units in 22 months. And now I'm retired a millionaire. Now I just help my friends do the same thing. So I'm going to be giving the advice that I wish I knew when I started. Guys, enjoy. My name's Hugh. And Dave specifically said, don't get on stage and talk about how you're a piece of human garbage. So I won't do that this morning, even if it may or may not be true. It's a little bit intimidating to get in front of everybody and speak, especially this group. You've got everyone from brand new folks all the way to extremely sophisticated investors. And I know I'm going to be going over Real Estate 101. So I'm going to give you guys when I didn't know anything about real estate, the most intimidating part was not knowing what I didn't know. And so I'm going to be sharing, hopefully exposing the ideas to you, and you can go do the research on your own later. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. So a little bit about myself is I'm an operations lord. I'm going to get to that in a little bit. My background is I'm a process engineer. I went to school for IT. Afterwards, I went into manufacturing. Well, I went to the private sector for IT for about 8 years, and then I went into manufacturing. And I then took that skill set and applied it to real estate, and that's my unfair advantage. When I was in manufacturing, I ran a $52 million international manufacturing company across 11 time zones, or however many time zones there are. And it was a huge pain, but picked up a whole bunch of skill sets. For those of you who don't know, manufacturers have a horrible margin, like 1% to 2% margins most of the time. And so they have extremely sophisticated systems and processes to prevent them from going bankrupt. And so that's my background, right? That's the way I started. This is the vanity metrics. So scale from 0 to 287 doors in 22 months. All 100% owned, no syndications. And that's everything from hotels, apartment complexes, started with 26 crack houses, not 29 crack houses. That was my first house. I never even had a primary residence before then. No experience, no core 4, all that jazz. And also I retired a millionaire in 15 months. So then I recently founded Business Wealth Blueprint, and I just help my friends unfuck their businesses. We basically go around and teach business owners how to do operations. And then when they get their time and money back, I show them how to invest that to build generational wealth with ease. So most people are a slave to their business. And if you're in real estate, by the way, you are in business. It's not an asset, it's business. Okay, a little bit about me. My Venn diagram is basically business operations, and my weapon is something called lean, which I'm very, very good at, and real estate. That's my primary investment vehicle, though I do have others. So this is, I'm not the most educated in the room by far. I'm often not the most capitalized. I'm not the most nimble. My team and I are not the most nimble, but we generally will dominate. We suspiciously find ourselves in situations where we are in front of the rest of the pack. We usually will outcompete most of the people in the room because of our systems and processes. So all I do is I scale teams of people who are awesome because I, like Dave, am not detail-oriented. Is it just luck? Yeah, it's luck, but we make our own, right? Seneca's definition, luck is when preparation meets opportunity, and we just spend all day preparing all the time, right? That's what the military does. Every day you're training, right? You're training, and then when shit hits the fan, you're prepared to seize opportunities. So that's all it is. We just follow basic fundamentals. So today's roadmap is going to be, I'm going to talk about a little bit about what investments are, then some basic tactics. I'm going to give you $1 million advice, $1 million plus advice, and then we'll open up to Q&As. So, all right. Introduction. Who's this for? It's for beginners, aspiring investors, current investors, anyone who's interested in financial freedom. So hopefully there's some tidbits of things in here. There are a lot of advanced real estate folks that are in here. So try to provide some value there as well. But and I'm also going to be judged on the advice I do give. So hopefully that helps out. Okay. This is from Robert Kiyosaki, the cash flow quadrant. And these are basically the very, very base level tenets, right, of what things are. So the first thing is employee. You have a job, right? You trade your time for money, right? There's a little time symbol for money symbol. The next step is you own a job. That's becoming self-employed. Right? So that is going to be you now are Bob's Mowing. Well, Bob's Mowing has got to go mow every day. If Bob stops mowing, the money stops coming in. So he still trades time for money, but it's just significantly more, right? The next step is going to be owning a business. This is where you have systems and processes. Other people trade their time for money, but you trade those systems and processes for money. And that's the first time you own an asset, right? If you have a business. By the way, if you can't step away from your business for 60 days and your business is still there, then you don't have a business, you have a job. And the last one is investor. So an investor turns money into more money. And generally, on one side of the curb, you have people who tend to be more poor, not poor, but poor thinking, right? That's the hustle, that's the grind. And then on the other side, you tend to have people, be more wealthy. And so wealthier people generally own assets of some kind. And if you just trade your time for money, doesn't matter how much money you make, there's an extremely unlikely likelihood, even if you're a doctor or a lawyer or something, that you will be rich one day or wealthy. So that's the very, very baseline. And so why invest in real estate? There's steady cash flow. Usually it's predictable. Property appreciation. So you buy something for 100 grand, it'll go up. Diversification of investments, right? So if you have S&P 500 index, people are all freaking out about what the stock market's doing right now. Allegedly, I really haven't paid attention. Why? Because I've got Bitcoin, of course. So, but even if you only have real estate, right? It's very hyper local, so it's block for block. I'm in the Midwest primarily, and so then there's tax benefits and deductions. I'll probably end up paying taxes in the future, but right now I don't, and that's directly because of real estate. And then leverage is another fancy word for debt. So I often don't use my own money to acquire most of the things that I have. My original 26 portfolio of crack houses that I bought that were very dilapidated and not taken care of have been turned mostly, and I've already birded them out, which you'll learn about if you don't already know in a little bit. I've pulled all the equity out 3 times already, so they don't cash flow very well. But I've pulled all the money out, and now I'm going to bundle them up and sell them and carry the debt. So a lot of things you can do because it's an asset. So real quick before we get into real estate, if you are looking to a mechanic and you're like, hey, mechanic, how do I fix a car? That's kind of a very strange question to ask, right? Well, what kind of car, right? Is it a reliable Toyota? Because then you don't really need to fix very much. Is it a fancy car, right? Is it a piece of garbage? Who knows? Also, outside of what kind of car, what's wrong with it, right? Is it an engine problem? Is it something with tires or suspension? Or are you longingly staring at a screw or bolt, right? So that's kind of the way real estate is. By the way, I'm not a mechanic, so I don't know anything about cars. But there's so many ways to approach real estate, and so many people in the room do so much. So the value is, really after the presentations.
Business owners, are you aware that I have a newsletter down below in the description, and it is full of all the tactics and stuff that if I put it on YouTube, I will be demonetized. It is a weekly newsletter that will go out telling and talking to you guys about the things that will help you and us, our businesses, stay ahead. If you're interested, check the link, click the link below. Now, back to the video.
So we're there. So we're going to go into the basics now. First one I'm going to get into is flipping. You guys have all seen chip and joiner gains, right? Buying, renovating it, and selling it for profit. In my opinion, flipping is not investing. It is owning a job. You're on that left side of the equation. Why? Because you bear all the risk, you take all the, you spend the money to hold it, you're in there renovating, and then when you sell, the government says, hey, appreciate that, that was inventory, you now owe us full rent for taxes. So flipping is that. You find undervalued properties and you just kind of try to fix them up. So that'll come down to your skill set, right? Do you have a lot of money, right? There's someone in the room right now that I've talked to before. They have a very lucrative paying job in the medical field, and they have the ability to make, I can't remember, I think it was like $200 an hour or something. And it's going to be worth it more for them to just pick up overtime, because when they pick up overtime, they're going to make more money in a day than it's going to cost them to go swing the hammer, even though they could swing the hammer. So what are your skill sets, right? If you're going to engage in flipping, know that it's a job. It can be a very lucrative job, but you bear a lot of risk. And then, are you running a team? Are you going to do it yourself? These are all questions you need to ask, right? Have you done this before? So kind of going from that. All right, next one is buy and hold. Long-term properties for passive income. So this is where I fall in the category. A lot of us kind of have a bigger pockets background. They're going to lean more towards this. This is, in my opinion, investing, because you're going to buy and hold for long term, and it'll continue to pay. That could be turnkey. We're going to get into some easy ways. You're going to learn a lot about VA loans here in a second. But yeah, so buy and hold, it's the same thing. I prefer to flip and hold, which is the BRRRR strategy. And I'll get into that in a little bit. But effectively, it's still buying properties, forcing the appreciation, not waiting for the properties that just go up in value, but making them go up in value. And then I'll go to a bank and get my money back. How to analyze a rental property. So the 1% rule is a quick screening method. Unless you're in the Midwest, this is pretty much dead. And in the Midwest, it's becoming more and more hard. The real number is 0.8%. This means that if you're going to buy a property for $100,000, can it make you $100,000 in rent? That is a very quick way to determine if it is going to bankrupt you or not, right? If you're living in San Diego or Denver or something like that, DC, you're probably never going to find something like this unless you're going to go midterm or short-term rental. In the Midwest, this is true. Around Tennessee, probably still true. You can find it. 0.8% rule. Really, if you buy that $100,000 property, can it rent for $800 is the real number based on most market rents of properties that we can, or most interest rates that we can get right now. Next one is cash on cash returns, measuring the profitability. So how much money you put into it, right? How did you buy it? And then what's the return on that? The cap rate is going to be a lot more valuable, a lot more used when you come to commercial real estate. This is if you didn't have a loan against it, what would the profitability be? And then expenses to consider. There's something called the 50% rule. So if you get rent, assume 50% of that rent is going to be gone before the loan. It's just standard expenses. If it's a newer property, it might be less. If it's an older property, like I own a whole bunch of properties from the 1890s into the 1930s and 50s, pretty much anything before 1970s, for me personally, in our market, they have a very high, we're like 55% expenses just because old houses have old house problems. My 1970s stuff, my 1990s and 80s stuff, they are more like 30%. So now that I have more money, I'm going after better, nicer, newer properties. Thanks so much for sticking around to watch. Please help us by watching this next video.